Hello, and welcome to the first session of the Collaborative Professional Development Series this year. I'm looking forward to collaborating between buildings to align our curriculum and teaching practices for greater student success. My name is Jennifer Toney, and I am Warrensville Heights' new Pre-K to 5 Curriculum Coordinator. Before we begin, I would like to share some background about myself. I recently completed my 9th year of elementary school teaching. I began my career in Farrell, Pennsylvania, teaching all-day kindergarten. With the threat of the school closing due to low enrollment, I began searching for a new position. I was hired at Sharpsville Elementary School as one of 5 first-grade teachers. A few years later, there were some retirements, and I was asked to graduate to 2nd grade. I remained in the 2nd grade classroom for 2 years. Then, upon more retirements, I was asked to move to 5th grade, where I would become the English Language Arts Department leader. My last year in 2nd grade and my entire year in 5th grade was inundated with aligning the curriculum to the Common Core standards. There was no K to 5 curriculum coordinator at Sharpsville. During this time, I realized my desire to collaborate with other practitioners, so I began to pursue doctoral studies at Kent State University in the Curriculum and Instruction program with a focus in literacy. Upon further changes in the district, I was relocated to 3rd grade to lead the Language Arts Department and prepare the students for their first year of state testing. I recently rewrote the 3rd grade English Language Arts curriculum after a successful year of instruction and testing. It is my hope that we can work together to not only give our students the necessary tools for testing, but to instill a love of learning in each and every one of them. Upon your arrival, there was a folder placed at your table for you to take. There are a few resources that you will need throughout our session today. You may be wondering why you were asked to sit at a specific table. Well, I'd like to begin our vertical alignment conversation today. You're seated at a table with a member from each grade level, pre-K to 5. In a short time, we'll share some reflections with our groups to get the conversation going. Today's agenda is a foundation for future professional development sessions. We'll spend a few moments reviewing the data that will drive our instruction. Then we'll focus on what we can do to move forward. The emphasis this year will be on explicit instruction that will provide our students with the necessary tools for independent success. I will then provide an example of how we will plan our daily instruction to reach this goal. We will conclude by thinking ahead to our own grade levels and getting to work on our planning. We live in the age of accountability. The decision to provide explicit instruction was made based on the 2013-2014 Warrensville Heights report card. This slide takes a look at our K-3 literacy. It presents the number of students in each grade level, K-3, who were reading below level. There were a total of 159 students in grades K-3 who were not on track, and this number improved by 88 students, giving us a grade of a C. Despite the fact that there are various other factors that play into lower achievement, it is our job to guide the students to improve their literacy. This slide presents some of the same information as the previous slide. It's up to us to devise and implement a strategic intervention plan to assist these students in achieving reading success. Based on this data, it is evident that the current practices are not completely achieving the desired outcome. This chart shows the overall percentage of students that were on track and not on track for each grade level, K-3, for their reading diagnostic. The analysis of this information shows a significant decrease in reading success from grade to grade. So how can we get our students to academic success? I would like to begin by taking a few moments to reflect. Without self-reflection, we often don't realize our successes or limitations. In the left pocket of your folder is a postcard. Please complete a 3-minute reflective quick write to think about what your literacy block looks like each day. Be as specific as possible in order to celebrate your accomplishments and realize where you need to grow. After you've completed your quick write, please start with the kindergarten teacher at your table, introduce yourself, and share your reflections with your group members over the next 5 to 10 minutes. After everyone has shared, begin discussing similarities and differences across the grades. Select one person to summarize your discussion for the rest of us. Based on the data and your discussion, it is important to note that we are doing many great things. However, in this age of accountability, we must strive to improve. I propose we provide our students with a daily routine that consists of manageable content that builds in complexity and independence throughout the course of the year. I created and implemented a routine such as this with my English language arts students this past year. The results were successful. We'll take a look at those results after a brief discussion on explicit instruction. In order to provide success for our students and a successful learning environment, young learners thrive on predictable routine. In order to meet the requirements of the Common Core standards and design an effective and engaging learning environment, we will employ explicit instruction. So how do we employ explicit instruction? Well, there are 5 steps that we will take, and this will be accomplished through providing specifics to the students. We need to give them a specific description of the comprehension or the language skill that we are working on. We'll spend time demonstrating the type of thinking that the students will need to master. We'll provide guided practice in whole group and literacy centers, and we'll give students time to apply the skills independently in standard and non-standard forms of assessment. There certainly is not enough time today to model each of these steps in detail. I will, however, be providing an ongoing professional development series to collaborate with you throughout the course of the school year. As I mentioned earlier, I created and explored and employed this exact structure in my classroom last year. This slide is an example of the benchmark assessment we utilized to gauge student success on the state assessment. Students were given a baseline test in September, followed by another in December, and then again in March. I began the year with 39 students. 69.2% were proficient, leaving 30.8% below proficient. By December, after providing explicit instruction and authentic tasks in the workshop, 87.2% were proficient or advanced, leaving just 12.8% not on track. By March, 92.5% of my students were proficient or advanced, and 7.5% remained basic. Please note that all students who began as below basic improved by March. So to get us started, we need to create vertical alignment. And we'll create this from pre-K to 5 with a daily block of time designated for literacy. Each block of time will be divided into 4 parts. There will be explicit reading comprehension skill instruction, followed by the reading workshop and literacy centers. Then there will be explicit language skill instruction, followed by the writing workshop. There will also be a designated block of time for standardized preparation. This is an example of a daily lesson plan, and we're going to take a look in more detail at this plan. So in the front of the right-hand side of your folder, there is an example of the daily lessons for a 5-day week. They're projected on the screen right here. These lesson plans are completely aligned with the grade level curriculum map. So let's take a closer look at these daily plans. The reading block begins with the reading comprehension skill. You will teach and model this skill on Monday, really introducing it to the students. This is the time when you will define the skill and provide the background information for the students. You get to decide how you want to do that. As the week progresses, you will gradually release responsibility to the students so that they can independently use the skill on Thursday and Friday. So rather than teaching and modeling on Thursday and Friday, this will be independent practice for the students. This is a very short block of time, 10 to 15 minutes. Following this daily dose of the reading skill, you will then move into the reading workshop. This is one of my favorite parts of the English Language Arts block because this is where reading really comes to life. So you will spend about 10 minutes on the read aloud. This read aloud is linked to the reading skill, and it's also linked to your mini lesson. So you'll choose a read aloud that really demonstrates your skill of the week. Following the read aloud, you have a short mini lesson where you will demonstrate for the students exactly what you want them to be doing independently. So for this particular week, they were noticing character traits. So I demonstrated for them through my read aloud how to notice the traits of a character and why those traits are important to the story. So you'll take some time here to model the skill that they're going to be working with. After this brief read aloud and mini lesson, you will move into small groups. You might call these literacy centers, but during this time, this frees you up to work with a small group of students on that comprehension skill, while the rest of the students are engaged in their work. Students only visit one station per day, so essentially this whole block of time stays the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It does not change. It's repeated. The only thing that changes is your read aloud and possibly your mini lesson if you're adding more information. The students from the beginning of the year know exactly where they need to go each day. And I do have a chart that I devised that I will present at our next session on establishing these literacy routines. So while students are working, they are at one of four stations. They are either with you at a guided book club, where you are working on the comprehension skill, or they are at the word workstation, where they are working with their particular word study skill. They might be practicing test prep questions. I utilize Study Island quite a bit, and that is something that aligns with the Common Core and the particular skill of the week. And the final station is they might be independently reading, which I call IDR. And during this time, there's always an accountability piece. There's always a reading response or something the students need to bring back to the discussion, which then leads into the closure. So like I said, these literacy groups have, they go on from Monday through Thursday, and students visit one station a day. At the conclusion of the workshop, you will bring the class back together for closure, and oftentimes the students share some of their findings from their independent reading for that accountability piece, and also to get them discussing the text that they're enjoying on their own level. At the halfway point of the literacy block, you'll switch gears to language. The language skill follows the same format as the comprehension skill in that you model and explain and each day you gradually release ownership to the students. At the conclusion of the explicit language skill instruction, you will transition into the writer's workshop. So just like this reading skill was a short block of time, the language skill is also a short block of time, with the exception of Monday, because Monday you are also introducing the word study skill. Each 9 weeks of school, you will focus on a different type of text that the students will be writing. So in Writer's Workshop, you will essentially follow the same format as the reading workshop. You will begin with a short mini lesson. Then students will, once you model in your mini lesson exactly what the students will do, then they will go on to independent writing. During this time, every child is writing, and you are conferring with individual students or with groups of students. While they're working and you're conferring with them, you'll be helping them with strategies that you modeled or maybe something you worked on from previous classes. We will be reading a text written by Lucy Calkins titled One-to-One, The Art of Conferring with Young Writers in our Professional Learning Community Book Club this month. So if you're not sure on conferring, we will get into some discussions with that. Following about 25 minutes of independent writing, you will gather back up to the meeting space where you will have closure, and students will meet with either their assigned writing partner, or you might have a whole class share. So you'll debrief on something that they worked on that day in their writing. Each day of the week follows the same format, gradually releasing ownership to the students. The difference comes then on Thursday. So instead of the writing workshop block, Thursday is reserved, there's a block of time reserved for standardized test prep. And during this block of time, you begin to teach students about types of test questions. And this starts all the way back in grade 1. You are introducing them to types of questions and expectations on how to show what they know. So even if you're not teaching in a testing grade, it is still important for you to be aware of the format of the tests and the language that is used on the test. So that way we have some continuity from K to 5 for all of the students. Friday is another day that's a little bit different. We start off with a skills assessment. These are teacher-created standards-based assessments that go along with the skills of the week. We also assess fluency with a cold read on a passage that's near grade level. And this gives parents and students a true picture of where they are. Following the assessment, we move into writing workshop, and for Friday it's different. We spend some time looking at poetry because poetry is so important, not just for the Common Core standards, but just for students to develop a love for literacy. So each week you will choose a poem. It could be based on a theme, possibly the time of year, seasons, student interests, whatever you may choose. It can be anything really. You'll choose a poem and you'll work on word harvesting with your students so that they can build background. And again, that will be another session for our professional development series. Another thing that we'll start getting into in the upper grades is spending some time looking at root words. For the primary grades, you'll use this time to work on foundational skills, possibly explicit phonics instruction. And so that is one thing that is different about Friday, spending time with poetry and root words. Following this block of time, there's about a half hour here based on how long the skills assessment takes. We transition into reading workshop. Friday is another one of my favorite days because we spend time doing some readers theater, and research has proven that Reader's Theater certainly helps with fluency and expression, and also which relate to comprehension. So on Fridays, you will provide students with a chance to meet in small groups. First, you'll model the Reader's Theater script for them. You'll have a group discussion on any words that they're not sure of or phrases that they don't understand the meaning. And then you'll have them already assigned to groups, and they'll work on their script, reading it at least 3 or 4 times. Once they have become more fluent in the script, they can perform for the class. If you don't feel confident and you want them to have more time to practice those, they can certainly perform them the next Friday. If there's time at the end, you'll continue working on your read aloud if it's a chapter book, or possibly if you're reading trade books, you'll start another trade book to give the students a chance to listen to some authentic literature and storytelling. And it's the same routine for every week. Once the students are familiar with that, they know exactly what to expect, and they can come in the room and you can change the content and the complexity of it, but they are comfortable and they understand how the room functions. So I know I just presented a lot of information, but I'd really like to take some time today to test drive this lesson plan. So for the remainder of our time today, during this professional development time, I would like you to start developing some ideas based on the standards. Before we do that, though, I would just like to take some time to look at the week ahead. So next week, we're going to reconvene to discuss the plans that you are about to start working on. When you return, please have the template that's in your folder completed with any questions or concerns. You may have some blank spaces. That's perfectly fine. Also, please make sure to create a personal Google email account. This way we can collaborate electronically via Google Docs and Google Forms, and it's a very efficient way that we'll be able to collaborate in the hustle and bustle of our busy days. Over the course of the next month, we will work to align our lesson plans with the grade level curriculum maps and draw on our professional expertise to fill in the best practices as they fit the structure of our literacy block. And so that takes us back to the template. Please take a seat with your grade level team, and in the right hand side of your folder is the blank template. I provided a 5-day week, but for right now, just focus on the introductory day. So let's take a look at that in more detail. So in your folder, you have this daily lesson plan template. I left blank spaces for you to fill in, depending on the time of day of your literacy block, your grade level. So please, just for today, don't get too overwhelmed with it. Look at just this first day. Look at Monday's plan. So I also in your folder have included the Ohio State Standards. And so what you need to do then is you can sit with your team and start really brainstorming. Basically, this first week, you're looking at the key ideas and details, standard statement number 3. So this is all about reading literature and focusing on characters. So as a team, you just want to think about how are you going to teach and model? How are you going to introduce the importance of looking at characters? So then whatever your method is going to be, whatever your vehicle of instruction is going to be, you'll fill it in here. And of course, this line isn't too long. If you need to use extra space down here, please feel free to do so. Once you figure out how you're going to teach it, I always start a list of materials so that I can just grab those and know what I need for that day. Then you can shift into the reading workshop. This workshop is directly related to your skill that you're working on for the week. Every week it's one comprehension skill and one language skill. And then the kids have the chance to put those into practice in their reading workshop and their writing workshop. So then you'll decide what your block of time is for the 45 minutes of reading workshop. It may take some time to decide what read alouds you have that really demonstrate strong characters that would really encourage discussion of character traits. So you may leave this blank for a while until you get back to your classrooms or think about it. And your skills instruction mini lesson is just a 10-minute brief modeling session. And you'll decide what you want your students to know. And I always speak to the students, depending on what section of the literacy block we're in, I always address them as readers or writers, because that engages the thought in their brain that they are the readers and they are the writers. So I always start by saying, readers, today you will, and then I tell them what my teaching point is, and then I show them what they need to do. And I always correlate this mini lesson with this independent reading time. So whatever I want them to be doing when I'm working with a small group of students, I am demonstrating that right here so that there's no question. Following that, you'll break into your literacy groups. This is one of my favorite times of the day. This is where you will pick a text. If you are familiar with guided reading and your students are still at the level of needing guided reading, this is where that piece would fit in. I also have a session to work on the guided reading lesson plan. So if you have questions about that, I am available to address those for you. The word work piece is simply the spelling pattern and decoding skill that your students will be working on for that week. We will have a meeting to discuss the words their way text, and we will begin to use that in our classrooms as well. This test prep piece, I use Study Island. The students all have access to a laptop or a Chromebook, and they have learned at the beginning of the year how to sign on to their Study Island account, and they practice 15 questions. If there is not access to computers or other technology devices, this is a time for them to practice questions that relate directly to the standardized test from the state, and it correlates with the skill of the week or previous skills from weeks prior. This is just a chance for them to get daily test prep, just 15 questions. There is an accountability piece to this as well. I have the students always fill out how many questions they get correct, and if they should finish before the 20 minutes is up, they then move into independent reading. That is the final station, independent reading. During this time, students are reading text on their independent reading level. So this is the time where they may not be necessarily reading on grade level, but it is encouraging their confidence. And so this is a very important time of the week. During this time, they are jotting. They're writing notes either in a notebook or on Post-it notes to tell you what kind of connection they're making with the comprehension skill of the week. So if they're reading a text, they're looking for the characters, what kind of traits they possess, and how that affects the overall story. Following the literacy centers, we quickly and quietly close up and move to the group meeting space where we discuss, we just touch base on what the teaching point was for the day, and then the students will share some examples. So you need to think with your team on how you would want to do that. Possibly modeling for the students, they might do a pair share, they might do a whole group share, whatever strategies you like to use that would be appropriate for this time, would be suitable. The second half, as I mentioned earlier in my example plan, you will spend time thinking about the language skill and the word study skill on Monday. Now, Tuesday through Thursday, there will not be a separate time for explicit word study skill instruction. You just introduce it Monday. This block of time is just a little bit longer on Monday, and then they go to town working on it during their independent stations. So you'll start with a daily fix-it. 1 or 2 sentences where there are errors, where the students need to correct them, and you discuss them as a class. So you're teaching and modeling language skills from the standards. Those are in your folder if you need to reference this, but basically the conventions of standard English statement number 1 deals with capitalization and punctuation. So you need to decide how, as a grade level, do you want to teach this skill? Is it through a song on YouTube? Is it through an activity on a Promethean board or a smart board? So this is where you decide, how do I want to introduce the skill of capitalization and punctuation to my students? Then, like I said, Monday, you have the word study skill, same thing. How do you want to introduce the word study pattern? As a grade level, we will have a list of the patterns that the students will need to work on for each level so that we know they're getting a review, but that they're also not overlapping the same lists year after year and not getting to skills that are necessary. And then decide as a team, how do you want to teach this lesson to them? Will you use whiteboards where the students are doing a word sort? Whatever strategies you have employed in the past that have been successful would fit in here for spelling or word study. Then you will transition to the writing workshop, and as I mentioned, each of the 3 quarters of the school year, you will focus on a text type. And so this beginning of the year, you're focusing on narrative writing, which falls under standard statement number 3. And so you will tell the students and show the students what you expect them to do when you send them off for their independent writing time. And you'll start by saying, writers, today you will, and then you'll explain what your teaching point is. So you could take a look at this standard statement, and that will guide your lesson planning. Then after that's done, you will send your students off for independent writing and conferring. And this action that the students will complete will correlate with what you modeled up above. And then the closure is the same. You might have them share through a partnership or a small group or the whole group. It's just a quick 5-minute closure for them to discuss the progress for that day. So by the next time we meet, work with your team just to work on a 5-day plan. And I have all the days here, empty templates for you with a few things filled in just for guidance. And one of the key things for you that's going to be important is the materials. It's always good to have those listed so that you can just grab those and get started in the midst of a busy day. And so please, like I said, grab a chair, sit with your grade level team, and take out your template to get started. Please be sure for the next session to have this entire thing completed and also have a personal Gmail account set up so that we could start documents there. One final thing, there is a survey in the left pocket of your folder. Please don't forget to complete that for feedback on this session, for help with planning future sessions. And also, don't forget to enter a drawing for a chance to win your choice of a Scholastic book from the book fair. All you need to do is put your name and phone extension on the back of your Quick Write postcard. And the surveys as well as the postcard can be placed in the basket by the door. So I am available, like I said, to meet with your teams now and also during planning time throughout the course of the weeks and the year ahead. We can review material from today's presentation. We can go over questions you might have about other ideas, suggestions, things you'd like to learn about, and also please feel free to list those on your survey as well. Thank you so much for attending, and please do not hesitate to contact me, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.